Zach, we have Indiana at home facing the defending national champions, Michigan. Over under in this one is 48.5. Indiana is favored by 14 points. Indiana, I am struggling to find a way that Indiana loses this game. Zach, I went into this specifically thinking, okay, I'm going to find as many avenues as I can for Michigan to win this game. The avenues that I found mostly consist of Indiana not playing well. There's not really an avenue I can find where Michigan just outplays Indiana, which is tough for a Michigan team to swallow that won the national championship last year. But I think if we're being honest about this team and if we're being honest about this Indiana team, this is where these two programs are at. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so the way it's funny, I similarly, because I think I went into analyzing this game thinking I think Michigan might give Indiana problems. And I think their defensive line could give them problems. I don't know if any other unit on their team can. And that's like I think the running backs could have like some success at times. But man, Davis
Maybe
Warren,
Mullins, but Edwards.
yeah, like maybe
If they give the
Mullins.
ball to Edwards, he's going to fumble it eventually.
Yeah. But I'm like, aside from Colston Loveland, what playmaker do they have on offense that you're like, oh, they're going to give Indiana some trouble?
Not
Like,
really anybody. I mean, they've had a few wide receivers pop up here and there and get some
yeah.
good catches, but there's not anybody consistently for Michigan that's going to do anything to this Indiana
Yeah.
secondary.
And then I don't think Will Johnson is playing. Has there been any confirmation about
Dude,
that?
I don't think he's playing all year.
Yeah, I mean that's my feel.
They're
too,
5-4. I'm surprised Michigan hasn't bowl banned themselves already yet.
Yeah, well, it's something's coming. Something's coming.
Yeah.
But like I just look at their secondary is not very good.
No, Philip, we're not doing that.
No, definitely not.
With the way it sounds like Pennsylvania with their stuff, we could be here for weeks, man.
It's our bad. Our bad in PA.
Zach, come on, go fix it.
No, I'm going to bed. I'm going to bed.
I'm sorry, that was such a funny comment. I had to bring it up. Continue.
It's great. But like it's not just that Indiana has a couple of good receivers. They have several. Like Surratt is awesome. Cooper he's averaging 22 yards a catch. Price is good. Cross is good. Like there's a reason why McCauley transferred, right? Like, because they have a lot of good receivers. You've got two good running backs. The line is good. And I look at the defense for Michigan and I'm like, you can only pass rush and be good on the front without help for so long. And so I tried to find I tried to find pathways and I'm like, honestly, and this is not meant to be a dig at Indiana by any means. Indiana feels like a slightly lesser version than Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen the full version yet because we haven't seen the big game yet,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they could be the same version of Oregon. We need to see it in a big game, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you line them up athletically and you say, okay, NFL draft, Oregon's athletes are better.
Oh yeah.
But in terms of being a complete team,
right. Playing together, discipline, juice, working together, coaching. I mean, all those things. Honestly, like those things, Indiana might be the best in the Big Ten in a lot of those areas. And those are the kind of intangible things that you can use to get over the talent gap and win games. I personally think once we get to the NFL stuff, some of these players that are showing out really well right now and aren't getting kind of the NFL draft respect are going to start getting it more once we get to the combine. And if they show up really well against Ohio State and in the playoffs, you'll start seeing it even more after that as well, because these guys, like I said, they've played really well against not so good teams. But once they do something really good against a very good team, people are going to be like, whoa, this team has more talent than we thought.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I say lesser than Oregon, I think there's clearly some NFL dudes on this Indiana squad. So, but I think So anyway, my point in saying that is I saw what Oregon did to Michigan, and granted, I thought Michigan had opportunities in that game, but Oregon controlled that game. Like they controlled it. If they don't turn the ball over, like it's not nearly as close at half. Well, it wasn't even close at half, but it was 21-10 at one point. Without the turnover, it's not that. And I just don't think Indiana's going to turn the ball over. It's at home. I I think it might be closer going into halftime, but then I think Indiana makes some adjustments and pulls away. I've got 34-17 Indiana over Michigan.
I mean, I could see it being a little bit close at halftime because maybe Michigan's defense does come out and they have a really good start to the game or something like that. But I think I'm with you in the second half. Indiana, no matter what, starts to pull ahead in this one. When I was looking at this game, there is just nothing that I can point to other than Michigan's defensive line making Indiana's offensive line look fraudulent, which I don't think they are. I think Indiana is one of the best offensive lines in the country right now. But other than that, there is no way that Michigan can even stay in this game. Indiana's defense, they got 7 sacks in the last game. O-line's Michigan's O-line is not very good in pass protection at all. Like, you're going to drop Davis Warren back, and he's going to have pressure on him every single time, and that's going to be with Indiana sending 4, maybe 3, right? Like, they are not going to have to be blitzing, so they're going to have guys in coverage the entire game. Indiana also blocked a punt and forced a fumble or a muff punt last game as well. So you're talking about a special teams unit that has been really good this season versus a Michigan special teams unit that hasn't been very good, because just point blank, this is not a well-coached Michigan team. This Michigan team is undisciplined. This Michigan team is not well coached. Last game, it's something as simple as don't line up over the center. And Oregon comes out with some fancy formation. What does he do? He lines up right over the center. It's like, dude, that is clear. That should be day one on special teams. Hey, if they come out and they only have a center out there, don't line up right over him. But no, of course, that's what he does, because this is just not a well-coached Michigan team. Michigan has good players who can do things, but they are not put in the position in order for them to be successful. Michigan's defense can't stop Indiana's red zone offense. I mean, my thought process, well, maybe they get Indiana to the red zone and maybe they stop them. Curtis Rourke is too accurate. The running game is too good. Like, Indiana is going to go on these long sustaining drives, and Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant are going to be dogged when they get to the red zone, and they're not going to have the energy to be able to keep up with Justin Ellison and Tyson Lawton and these kind of guys. So, or Tyson Law. And at the end of the day, like, quite frankly, Indiana is just far better coached than Michigan. Kirk Cigneti, Shanahan, all these guys, they will find a way to just completely pick apart this Michigan defense. And it could be a little held up at the beginning because of Michigan's playmakers, but eventually coaching will take over, execution will take over, discipline will take over, and this Indiana team is going to win 38-10 at least, if not more.
Okay.
So
so we both have them covering.
Yeah. Let's get to a few comments really fast. Dave says, I've been watching college football stuff all day. Keeps me distracted from the election. That's a good plan. I've been doing the same thing, Dave. I've been doing the same thing. John says, a lesser version of the number 1 team in the country. We'll take it. See, wasn't an insult. You're not an IU hater today, Zach. LFG, no Will Johnson, IU by 3+ touchdowns. Yeah. Even if they had Will Johnson, I pointed it out last episode, like, Will Johnson, his specialty, I'm not saying he's bad at it. I'm just saying it's not his specialty to guard guys over the middle. If it's a slant route or something like that, sure, but that's not his specialty. You notice Michigan keeps Will Johnson outside the numbers a lot of times, or around the numbers, because that's where he's better at. Pons would be a first-round pick next year if he was 6'1" instead of 5'9". Yep. And that's a lot of the issues for some of these Indiana players, is they just don't have the measurables in a lot of ways. Yeah. So I guess we probably should have been more specific when we said that instead of talent. Maybe we talked about some of the measurables.
Yeah.
For some of the players.
That's a really good point, John. Well, and I think, that's why a lot of these guys go to a place like JMU, is they're overlooked guys who are really good players, but like they don't have the measurables they're looking for. It's interesting. I was leading Bible study over at Susquehanna University, which is a D3 school. They're the number 6 team in the country in Division 3. And one of the guys there was a lineman, and he was telling me that the running backs on their team, both of them are two of the best athletes he's ever seen in terms of game speed. But he's like, they're short and they run a 4.5 instead of a 4.3. So that's why they're D3 players. And I was like, dang. And like that, I think that's the reality of group of 5 guys too. Like sometimes you don't like, you have a 5'9" corner who has every bit like of the physicality and speed, at least from a game perspective. But because they run a 4.5 and they're 5'9" rather than 6 foot,
Yeah.
like you don't get looked at. And
Yeah.
like that's why
that happens a lot more in the NBA than it does the NFL. Pons will still get drafted. He just won't be a first round pick. Guys in the NBA literally wouldn't even get drafted. I think there's been like 3 players drafted in the NBA that's under 6'5" the past few years, which is just absolutely insane. But that's the way it is. But you're right. Like you have to have the measurables and then the speed or whatever on top of it, and makes it hard. Philip says, could this be a letdown game for Indiana?
no.
If there were certain areas that Michigan was better at, I would say it's possible. But like I said, there's this like Michigan can't even blitz them. Like Curtis Rourke is so good against the blitz. Even if Michigan were to try to blitz Curtis Rourke, he'd just get the ball out of there. He'd see it coming, and it'd be a 15, 20-yard gain. Like there is just no response that Michigan has for Indiana in this game. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. You know, that's fine. But from what I've seen, I think anybody who's been evaluating football games this year in the Big Ten could not tell you a single area that Michigan could, go against Indiana in this one. It has to be Indiana beating themselves.
Well, and I think the thing this might be the biggest home game of the year for Indiana. Cause like it's the
Cameron's thinking outside the box here. Maybe they all get close.
But like in all seriousness, like I know Michigan, like for us, Michigan's 5-4. There's a lot of smoke around the NCAA doing something. To Indiana, like remember Kurt Signetti's press conference or pep rally. Like Purdue sucks and so does Michigan and Ohio State. I guarantee you this game was circled on the calendar for Signetti.
Yeah.
Like I guarantee it. And that actually makes me question whether I think it's actually 34-17 or if it's going to be like 55-14, 55-10. Because I like you can lay all this out on the line. You have a bye after this week. You don't like, and so that means you don't have to think ahead to Ohio State. You can just think about Michigan. You're going to have all the fans there. It would take a miracle for Michigan to win this game. That's my assessment with everything.
That's
from
your
a
analysis.
Motivation standpoint. Just from a motivation standpoint.
Zach, I'm going to put a picture on the screen. You tell me if this guy looks like he is going to lose a football game right before the biggest game of the year. Hold on. I'm stalling. If you're on podcast, I apologize. Get through this with me for just 2 seconds. It's loading. All right. Zach, you tell me, is this guy going to lose? Oh my gosh, it's still loading. Okay, is this guy going to lose a game before his biggest game of the year? It's 40-10. Look at that face.
He's like, guys, it's not enough.
Like,
he's like Kylo Ren in The Last Jedi. More.
It's like, I just like when I saw that on TV, I couldn't help but just like die laughing because it's like, dude, it's 40-10. You scored 40 unanswered points. You're absolutely destroying this team. And of course, I forget what happened exactly in this game, but he's like, no, it's not good enough. You guys need to keep doing better. Meanwhile, Sharon Moore is like, yay, we kicked a field goal. It's like improvement. Yay, Bryce Underwood. Did you see that completed pass? Like, we can't complete passes.
Bryce Underwood is not going to Michigan.
No, he's not.
It's like the word fetch in Mean Girls. Stop saying fetch. It's not going to happen.
I got to bring that picture up one more time. A man on a mission, Johnson.
There we go. That's a meme right there.
Well, it's like the picture of do you remember the picture of was it the Virginia Tech coach when it's like 0-0 and it's like end of regulation? He's like, yes, it's all excited. It's like 0-0, end of regulation. Like this is the opposite of that. It's 40-10, and Kirk-Cinetti is as mad as can be.
I'm not impressed.
Yeah,
not impressed.
Oh boy! All right, Zach. Anything else on this Indiana Michigan game before we get to the hot seat coaches?
No, I had a thought, but I'll table it.
Okay.